Hello and welcome to Squiggle Studio. This is just a small tutorial, or I say tutorial, it's just how I like to do it, and it's giving a bit of depth and using some different colours to create some detail by dry brushing. And it's especially good for large pieces of scenery. You can also use it on smaller miniatures as well, but it's good for scenery to give it a nice weathered, aged look. So for this tutorial, I'll be using these beautiful miniatures from Tainted Grail. These are the menhirs that you have to light up to guide your way and keep you safe. These are commission, but I've enjoyed them so much, and I enjoyed the dry brushing aspect of it because it's really helpful. That I thought I'd just see if it helps anyone else out there. So this would be the end result that I'm looking for. Some subtle highlights, some nice gradients in colour. It's not finished by a long shot. I've got to go back in and do the detail. But what this does is just help build up some colour. And that's one, and here is the second one. Again, just subtle highlights, rough edges, just to build up some colour. So the colours I'm going to use for it, so you see it's just got a base coat of grey with a small zenithal lighter grey highlight at the top, nothing too special, and a little bit of bone just to give it an effect. But I thought I wanted to bring it back to dry brushing to try and age it a bit more. So the colours I'm going to use is light moss green by scale 75, but any sort of forest green maybe would work, and what that's going to be used for is to build up a layer of moss almost. Just it's hard to see on the camera, but it just tones it not a nice sort of deep green colour. And then burnt skin, and what that will do is help mix with the green and give it a much more deeper feel to it. We're then going to mix the brown into a grey, and then dry brush that. Most of the model will have that around it, and that will pick up some more of the details. And then finally we're just going to add a bit of white to the grey and do some very quick stroke highlights, which I'll show in a second. So equipment wise, don't worry about a wet palette. If you don't have a wet palette, you can use a dry palette. It probably benefits you for dry brushing anyway. I just have one on me. A nice big brush, nice big wide bristled brush. Basically, the wider the bristles, the better the dry brushing will be. And something to wipe off the excess paint on. Make sure the paintbrush is really dry. You don't want any moisture because that will cause the paint to act as you would normally use paint, slightly thinned down. So what we're going to do is we're going to hold the miniature. We're going to try not to touch it too much, and I'm going to take some of the green. I'm going to actually, let me just move this over so you can see. I'm going to take some of the green, load up the bristles, and just take off some of it because I don't want to take off too much because this is actually almost a builder colour. And what I'm going to do is build that very lightly into some of the base areas. And what it's going to do, I'm just going to try and create that almost moss look to it. So the more irregular the better. Build it into those crevices, and almost you want to get the bits that aren't going to get hit with the dry brush when you do the highlights. So we're just going to work our way around, smooth off a bit more, and you can really press it in there and try and solidify up a bit because it will take off some of the edge when you mix in the brown. So again, we're just going to really rough, really irregular. Like I say, this technique's really good for scenery. It's really helpful to give it a nice weathered age look. A bit on the sword in the middle, a bit on the underarms. I think it's pronounced menhirs. If someone wants to correct me, whatever Stonehenge is, you know, menhirs, menhirs. I don't know. Yeah. So we're just building up the green. A bit more. Especially towards the bottom, really where it's touching the ground. That's the bit that the most vegetation is going to touch. A bit more inside. Okay, so don't clean your brush. I say this because what you want is to create transitions with a dry brush. It sounds weird. It is doable. So what we're going to do is we're going to go back with the brown, take some green, a bit more in with the brown. And we will take that off again. And then we're going to work that again, doing the same thing, almost working with the green, working in the same spaces as where we put the green. Just working along, nice and unnatural. You don't want, ironically, you want to be as unnatural with your placement as possible because although the vegetation you're creating is supposedly natural, it doesn't grow in a natural pattern. It follows its own path. It does what it wants, and all you're doing is just emphasizing that green. Just you see, I'm not dry brushing per se, I'm dabbing. Not that stupid dance move, just dabbing paint on, and you're just letting it flow with the green. And it's just about building tone. That's all we want to do, is just build some transitions, build some tone and gradients, and just give it a bit more depth. So you see, it's started to meld with the green and give it a bit more natural look. Like I said, this won't be the finished article when it's done. It will need some washes, some highlights, some touching up, some few more details, but it just builds a nice base. So the next colour we're going to take is our, where's my grey? Yeah. Is our grey. We're just going to start to lighten it up. We want quite a bit of grey, but we don't want a lot on the brush, so we're going to wipe that all off. And a dry brushing is about really quick strokes. So you almost want to, you're feathering, you're really doing really quick, rapid motions, because you don't want to paint the whole thing. You're only touching the highlights. And in a minute, we're going to do really quick highlights. And all you're doing is just getting it where it needs to go. You do want to try and cover the whole model with this, because this is the overall colour. But what you'll see is it starts to mix with the brown and the green, and you'll start to see it create its own natural transitions, or unnatural I should say. So these back bits will have a bit more, you see, and all it's done is create a really nice weathered look to it. So now we're going to add some white to the final mix. Almost pure white, but almost, not pure white, because it's nothing will ever be that bright. You should make sure that you've got enough. A trick is to test it on your hand. If it covers and you can see it cross hatch almost over your skin, you're okay. I might need a bit more white actually. Just give me 1 second. There we go. 2 up. There we go. So we're going to use that with our grey mix. I just keep lining up until I want the tone I want. There we go. Get it nice and off. And now we're just going to do some really rapid, quick strikes. Literally, you're almost slapping the miniature. That sounds weird, but you just want those high points. You don't want the whole miniature. You just want the tops. Nice and quick. You don't have to be neat, especially if you're doing scenery. If you're doing your troops, then yeah, you do have to consider it a little bit more. But yeah, and that's what we're doing. We're just picking out those highlights. And you can even take it up a notch as well if you want to, and go pure white if you want to. It's quite stark when it does it. But on this bit, I'm just gonna, I'm literally slapping it on. I'm just making sure that I barely touch the miniature. It just hits where I want it to go. That's all it's doing. And it's picking out those big highlights really quick. And there you go. And that's our, not finished menhir, but finished dry brushing. And you can see there's really nice natural colours of green and brown. The highlights come out nicely. Dry brushing is a really underrated technique. People go, oh, you dry brush, and it's cheating. It's not at all. It takes a lot of practice and a lot of skill to be able to dry brush properly. I can't do it that great. It only benefits that these models are so nicely curved and have those big ridges that it benefits it. But yeah, but I think it's something that every painter should know. Every painter should know how to dry brush. It is a basic. It is it can be your bread and butter, and I've seen people paint entire armies beautifully through just dry brushing. So give it a try. Remember, my tip is nice big brush. Obviously, if you're using a tiny miniature, you don't want to use a brush that's the size of the miniature, but you can get smaller dry brushes as well. Makeup brushes are also very good because of the widespread. I have one here. I didn't use it because of the widespread of bristles. You're less likely to get it into the crevices, and that's the basic aim of dry brushing, is to avoid the depths, avoid the recesses and hit the high notes. Washes are what goes into the recesses. So yeah, I hope this was useful. Another just quick video. This one focused on dry brushing and building a weathered look to scenery. And yeah, hope you enjoyed it. Take care, and I'll see you soon.